Shalom. Welcome to this fourth segment of Take 10 for Torah, a series that allows us to take 10 minutes out of our life and learn Torah with it. This week we're going to be discussing an interesting halacha. It's the halacha called Nochach HaMikdash. We have an interesting halacha that we're supposed to pray, as we're going to see in source number 1, towards the direction of the Beis HaMikdash. Let's look at source number 1. It's a Gemara that we find in Maseches Brachot. Okay? Tana Rabbanan Suma Misha Ini Yachol Lechavin Esaruchos Yechavin Libo Keneged Avish B'Shamayim. Okay, somebody that's blind. It's interesting. The Gemara starts off the other way. Someone that's blind that can't figure out the direction, or somebody that's not sure the direction, should keep in mind their Father in heaven. That line is going to be crucial for us to understand. So put that off to the side and keep that in mind for later. Okay, quotes a pasuk. After the pasuk, it says, "Yispalo Hashem hayomei b'chutz laaretz yichavin es libo keneged Eretz Yisrael." If I'm standing in chutz laaretz, so then I should have in mind my attention should be towards Eretz Yisrael. Shneimar v'yispalo Allah derech artzam hayomei be'Eretz Yisrael yichavin libo keneged Yerushalayim. If I'm in Eretz Yisrael already, then I should pay attention. I should put my mind towards Yerushalayim. Shneimar v'yispalo Hashem derech ha'ir shebacharta. If I'm in Yerushalayim proper, then I should focus on the Beis HaMikdash. If I'm in the Beis HaMikdash, the Gemara goes on to discuss, and you can look inside, the Gemara goes on to discuss all the different places. If I'm in the Beis HaMikdash, then I should be towards the Kodesh Kodashim. If I'm in the Kodesh Kodashim already, I should face the Aron. Okay, so that's all. Those are all the directions of where one's mind should be. If we look, the Shulchan Aruch paskins this way, lahalacha, and says that this is practically what we have to do. We all know, right? Let's look at the Shulchan Aruch, what he says. But this is source number 2 in our sheets. Interesting twist. While the Gemara talked about Yechavin Libo, we're going to get back to the difference. The Shulchan Aruch talks about which way you should stand, and we all know we stand towards Yerushalayim. Right? If we all stand towards Mizrach, that's how we daven. We face the direction because we're facing Eretz Yisrael. Right? So he says, Imahaya Omeid, again in source number 2, B'chutz laaretz yachzir panav keneged Eretz Yisrael, v'yichavin gam Yerushalayim u'lamikdash. And I should have in mind Yerushalayim, the Beis HaMikdash, u'beis Kodshei HaKodashim. Right? And also the Kodesh Kodashim, the most sacred part of the Beis HaMikdash. Haya Omeid b'Eretz Yisrael, if I'm in Eretz Yisrael, Yachzir panav keneged Yerushalayim. Then I should put my mind towards Yerushalayim. I should face Yerushalayim. V'yichavin gam Mikdash. The Shulchan Aruch is taking this idea and saying that I should be facing towards these places, whether it be Eretz Yisrael or Yerushalayim or the Beis HaMikdash, and wherever I'm facing, I should have in mind the next step. In other words, if I'm in Eretz Yisrael, I should have in mind Yerushalayim. If I'm in Yerushalayim, I should have in mind the Beis HaMikdash. If I'm in the Beis HaMikdash, then I should have in mind the Kodesh Kodashim, and so on and so forth. And Shulchan Aruch says, as we opened up in our Gemara, look at number 3. Shulchan Aruch says, Misha ina yachol lechavin haruchos yechavin libo lavi v'shamayim. Somebody that can't figure out which direction, so you should have in mind HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, here's my question. This, number 1, what's the idea of facing Yerushalayim? That's our number 1 question. But our question is strengthened, really, by the Rambam. And the Rambam, it's very strange. We have to keep in mind 2 facts. When the Rambam in his Sefer HaMitzvos, the Rambam discusses the 613 mitzvos and lists them all. Now, he doesn't give all the dinim and all the laws of each of the 613 mitzvos. He only gives us, and here's the important part, he only gives us the mitzvos that we need to know to help us define what the mitzvah is. Definitional ideas, okay? Let's explain. The Rambam says in source number 4, he's discussing the mitzvah, the law of prayer, and he says, "Ha-mitzvah chamishis hi shitzavinu la'avodo yisale." Right, that we have to serve God. Now, I want to skip a little. Not that this isn't worthy of investigating itself, but we've done it already in the first couple of shiurim of Take 10 for Torah. But let's skip down in our source sheets to the 4th line of source number 4, where it says in the middle of the line, "Uve mishnasol shel Rabbi Eliezer." Okay, Beno shel Rabbi Yossi Aglili Amru Minayin leikar tefila betocha mitzvos mehachas Hashem lokach tira ve'oso tavod. Right now, here's the interesting thing. It says that ve'oso tavod, that we should serve Hashem. Okay, that's where we know the mitzvah of prayer. And it says, "V'amru avduhu b'toraso avduhu b'mikdash." Right? We have to serve him with Torah and serve him with the Beis HaMikdash. Kelomar l'lechas sham liyispalo bo. That we should go to the Beis HaMikdash to daven there, v'negdo, and facing the Beis HaMikdash. In other words, if I can't make it to the Beis HaMikdash to daven, then I should pray towards the Beis HaMikdash. Now, with the Rambam including this in the Sefer Mitzvos, what he's telling us is that this is an important idea within Tefillah, is to be facing the Beis HaMikdash. And while we understand that there are a lot of important ideas in Tefillah, to have one of the primary important mitzvah, dinim, or laws of Tefillah is to be facing the Beis HaMikdash, begs the question of why it's so important. So now we're at the two questions. Number one, what's the idea of facing the Beis HaMikdash? And number two, why is it so important? And just in case you'll say, maybe it's not so important, the fact that he puts in the Sefer Mitzvos, the Rambam does the exact same thing again when it comes to Hilchos Tefillah. If you look at source number 5, again, keeping in mind, the Rambam, in the Mishnah Torah, when he discusses certain laws, what he's going to do is put the important ones first. And already, just in the third halacha of almost 15 chapters of the laws of prayer, in the third law, in the first chapter, the Rambam says, we're going to skip to the end of the second line. V'akoyu mispalim nochach hamikdash b'chol makom sheyeh. Part of the Torah law, it seems, according to the Rambam, is that you should be facing the Beis HaMikdash. Very interesting. Now, according to what we said so far, facing the Beis HaMikdash is of primary importance to the laws of prayer. But look at source number 6. The Rambam discusses Shmona Dvarim Sarach HaMispal Yizar Behem V'Asosam. Now, he says that there are 8 things that a person has to be careful about in prayer. Now, ideally, you should do these things, but says the Rambam, if you don't do them, they're not ma'akev. They don't negate your tefillah. There are some things, for instance, if I don't have proper intentions, or if I talk in my Shemona Esrei, those things negate my entire Shemona Esrei, I have to start again. But here the Rambam is saying that as important as these 8 things are, you don't have to start again when you say them. And here we go. What's one of them? The second one, if you look at the second line in source number 6, Nochach HaMikdash, facing the Beis HaMikdash. So while we say that facing the Beis HaMikdash is so important that we have to list it in the beginning of Hilchos Tefillah and in the Sefer Mitzvos, as important as it is, if I don't do it, my Shemona Esrei is still good. Which begs the question, is it important or is it not important? That's the question that we have. And if you look, right, the Rambam brings down in source number 7, he brings the halacha as to the Shulchan Aruch, and the Kesef Mishnah discusses in source number 8 2 ideas in facing the Beis HaMikdash. He says as follows. He says one understanding could be that wherever I am, as we understand it, I have to be facing the Beis HaMikdash. Right? That's the idea. Okay, that I have to be facing the Beis HaMikdash. Right, so that's the right. If you look at source number 8. Okay, or source number 8, and if you look at the second line, the third to last line, it says Yispal Nochach HaMikdash, O Shechozel HaMikdash B'chol Makom Sheyeh HaMikdash. Or the understanding of Nochach HaMikdash could be something else, that wherever the Beis HaMikdash happens to be, that's where I have to be facing. We are used to the Beis HaMikdash being on Har Bayis. But before Shlomo HaMelech built the Beis HaMikdash, it was actually in many different places. It was in Shiloh. We know the Mishkan was in the Midbar, was in the desert. So you always had to be facing the Mishkan. Now here's the question. What's the idea? What's the idea of always facing the Mikdash no matter where it is, or facing the Mikdash? What's the idea? And the answer is as follows. The Beis HaMikdash was not a place that we prayed to. Rather, it was a vehicle for our centralized understanding of God. I was able to experience God in the Beis HaMikdash because His divine providence was always there. We use the Beis HaMikdash as a vehicle of understanding for God. Tefillah, as a voda, stems from that same idea. I use tefillah as my understanding of God. It shows my priorities, like we explained, but it's also my way of developing relationship to God. I have to connect to the Beis HaMikdash during my prayer. Now, I don't have to, because we saw that, yes, ideally I should, but it's not ma'akev, it doesn't negate Shemona Esrei. The Rambam places the idea of facing the Beis HaMikdash in the beginning of Hilchos Tefillah and in the Sefer Mitzvos to show that definitionally the Beis HaMikdash defines Tefillah. Tefillah is my avoda, it's my service of God, it's my developing my relationship with God. In the same way the Beis HaMikdash defines my relationship and my service to God in the Beis HaMikdash, the Korbanos, so too does Tefillah. Therefore, in my Shemona Esrei, I face the Beis HaMikdash. But it does not it does not, it's not necessary for my tefillah, because my tefillah in essence is developing that relationship to God, is approaching God, is by improving myself, it's developing that relationship to God. So it doesn't negate the tefillah, but it defines tefillah for me. It's not necessary for prayer, but it defines what prayer is all about. And therefore the Rambam puts in the Sefer Mitzvos, because it defines that prayer is all about avoda, it defines that prayer is about developing that relationship to God, but again, it's not necessary for my tefillah. That's this edition of Take 10 for Torah. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email pillows@bethjacob.org.